Yo, what's up, people? How y'all doing? And so, this is going to be the last video that goes over isometrics in terms of information. Um, I do believe that I'm going to be coming out with another isometric video that's going to be talking about how to address each part of your body. Um, and this is due to the fact that thanks to you guys' support, it seems like there's a lot of interest and appreciation for the topic. And so I want to make sure that for whatever purpose that people would have to want to practice isometrics, they would have the ability to have at least one informational sort of video that can give them an idea of what is available. But in this particular video, I want to cover breath holding during isometrics and the presence of isometrics that we are already familiar with in the breathing exercises. So I'm actually going to start with the latter topic. And I do believe I brought this up before, but when we're doing isometrics, one of the main things is that you are generating a specific amount of tension, or you are generating a specific amount of um, you are exercising a muscle in a fixed position. And so we talked about the fact that when you practice yoga, there's always an isometric element to it, aside from maybe when you're in Shavasana, which is the corpse pose. Um, but aside from that, even when you're doing something like the lotus pose, or I believe is Padmasana, um, when you're locked in this position, it may not seem like you're doing much muscle work at the beginning, but if you stay in this position for a good 5 to 10 minutes and you're standing perfectly still or you're sitting perfectly still, you will start to feel how your muscles and various physiological elements are working to maintain that posture over a period of time. Um, in our current breathing practices, especially when we're taking breathing journeys, one of the main things that we do, especially when we are looking to release a large amount of uh, energy in order to dissipate those trauma locks in our system, one of the things that Brian has enlisted is the tensing up of rather our abdominal region or the tensing up of our entire body. When that's being done, even though we're not adding any resistance like what we were doing here, we're not using a resistance agent in order to generate the tension, that whole body muscular tension lock or that abdominal tension lock, that is an isometric hold. And more importantly, we often do this while we are holding our breath. Now, while we are holding when it comes to isometrics and breath holding, there are two things that we should be aware of. And I'm not saying this in terms of the practices that we have here, because this is very minimal sorts of isometric contractions while our breath is held. But let's say you are doing an isometric workout. That is to say, you're performing a certain number of isometric holds over a period of time in relatively close proximity to one another. When you're holding your breath doing isometrics, one of the key things that happens is that your blood pressure can increase. Now, increasing blood pressure is not always a bad thing. However, if you're an individual that has high blood pressure, this may be something that you don't want to do on a consistent basis. However, in my experience, I can note two places where that is done quite a bit. You see breath holds during an isometric contraction in Swami Yogananda's energization exercises, which is a form of exercise that is meant to energize your system as well as build your muscular frame, and in the practice of um, Sukshma Vyayam, which is a form of yogic exercise that is meant to not only strengthen the entire body, and not just the entire body in terms of your musculature, but also the entire body in terms of they start from the head down. So you work your entire body, including um, aspects of the body that you aren't going to see a lot of you're not going to see emphasized in a lot of other exercise modalities. For example, when you're talking about normative fitness work, you don't see a lot of focus on working out your facial muscles. You don't see a lot of focus on making sure that the muscles that surround your eyes are in optimal care. You're not necessarily addressing exercises that help balance your hormonal network. Um, in that particular exercise frame, there are a number of isometric holds in which you hold your breath over a period of time. One thing to take into account when we're talking about these modalities, however, is that there's also a lot of exercise that emphasizes um, peak level respiration. That is to say that you are breathing and you're breathing very deeply throughout the course of the performance of these particular exercises. And so when we're talking about breath holds with isometrics, just pay attention to your blood pressure. Okay? If you have high blood pressure, you may not want to do that, at least initially, too often. Okay? However, those breath holds can be helpful in adding a little bit of extra fire to the release of um, traumatic energy, right? And so, aside from that, I believe those are the two main factors that I wanted to cover when it comes to the final base information that comes with isometrics. Um, Now, the next video after this is going to focus specifically on muscle armor. And while this is talking about something within the musculoskeletal framework, what we're really going to talk about is how muscle armor is affected by our breathing practices, especially the ones that we're doing here on the breathwork community. So that's it for this particular topic. Hope this finds everybody in good favor. And until next time, peace.